Hi everybody and welcome to the Salty Seaman, where today I'm going to talk about my picks for the top 5 protagonists in a quest story. So I was going through trying to think of maybe my top 10 favorite characters of all time in fiction, and what I found was a lot of them kind of had a similar motif, that being kind of, if they're on a quest of some sort. These are characters who are driven to get an end goal and nothing's going to stop them. They're kind of driven for one singular purpose, and I thought that was kind of interesting. That's something I like to, I get really drawn to in terms of fiction. And I figured, well, before I do that list, I might just do just those top 5, and you'll probably see some of those sprinkled in when I do that video later in the future. But let's not waste any time. Let's get right to number 5. Number 5. Marv from Sin City franchise, movies and comics. If you're not familiar with Marv or Sin City, it is a comic book series later turned into, right now, 2 movies based on a comic by Frank Miller published by Dark Horse Comics. The very first one was a singular story about a guy named Marv and just what happens to him from meeting this woman, spending a night with her, she wakes up dead, and then his quest to find her killers and take revenge for her. If you're only familiar with the movie, it's actually pretty much the same. In fact, the visuals are very close. About something, if you've seen the comic, it's very stark, straight black and whites. And the movie did a really great job of capturing that aspect of it, especially the first movie. That's where the original story of Marv comes from. What I really find interesting about this quest story, it is, I think, less just a straight up finding the killer. It's more of or the killers. It's more of a redemption story. If you're familiar with the story, Marv is not a good guy. He's not terrible. He's not, the worst, but he's not mentally right. He's done a lot of bad things. He's not happy with himself. In fact, it pretty much shows he hates himself in the story. And he probably wasn't long for this world. He was going to commit suicide by cop or by something. And that's kind of what he does here. The story told in the original comic is he goes in a bar one night, and he's ugly. He's this huge hulking man, but he looks like he can take care of himself because he can. He's a badass. The whole story is very film crime noir kind of what Frank Miller does best. And he meets this woman who's flirting with him, ends up taking him home. Very beautiful woman. Never happens to this guy. Like Marv even says, even hookers turn him down because that's how ugly he is. But she spends the night with him, and he wakes up, she's dead, and the cops are breaking down his door. And it ends up him running and then leading him to try to figure out who did this. And he's basically doing this for her, for what she did, being nice to him, basically. And he even admits to himself she probably wasn't being nice to him just because she liked him. She was doing it because she was looking for protection. She knew she was in trouble, and he doesn't care. It's the end goal of his is, repay her, and I think to redeem himself. His quest takes him through the crime and the underbelly of Sin City, which he's used to, all the way to the very top, the Rourke family. And he's so determined, he's so driven to make this set right, both for Goldie and both just as one last thing he's going to do in this world. He's going to do something right. And I think it's a sad tale, but it's also kind of beautiful in a way. And not to mention, just you just gotta love Marv, because he's just such a cool character in terms of he's just this guy who can't remember stuff that he did. He wakes up, he has this expensive coat on, and he doesn't remember where he got the coat because I think it's from a different Marv story. But anyway, and stuff like that. He definitely has. You could tell he has a lot of mental problems. He's taking some kind of pill. There are people who like him and try to help him, but everyone kind of knows Marv is. He's not the brightest. He's really good at being dumb muscle, but he's also super violent. But people try to help him, and people get pulled into this quest of his. He meets, turns out Goldie is a very high-priced hooker. She has a twin sister, so that's great, crime noir right there. that kind of stuff. So he's, of course, kind of set off by her just looking exactly like Goldie. But I just really love the story. I love I love the sense of redemption he's trying to get for himself. The sense of I've really nothing left to live for. Or I'm probably was going to die soon anyway, one way or the other, if I didn't do it myself. So here's a good way to go out. And also, it's a love story. Unless I'm mistaken, you can call it infatuation. You can call it, misplaced delusions or whatever. But he does truly love Goldie, just from that one night and what he represents to him. So for that reason, I give Marv my number 5 spot. If you've never seen the movies or the comics, definitely check them out. The first Sin City graphic novel is the best. Frank Miller kind of gets a bad rap in later years. He kind of treads over the same path a lot. Most of his women are kind of whorish, and that's kind of been one of the biggest knocks against him. He's kind of very machismo. A lot of his writing is very machismo, manly kind of stuff. But he does do great work when he's on. The Dark Knight Returns, of course, his most famous work. His original run on Daredevil, and most of the early Sin City, especially this story. Of course, see the original movie. It's very well done. Mickey Rourke's playing Marv. He's in the second one too. They do. Spoiler alert. Marv dies at the end. He's electrocuted. He gets the revenge, but the Rourke family ends up making him take the fall for the murder the Rourke family makes him take the fall for Goldie's murder, among others that he actually did do. And he ends up going to the electric chair, which takes twice to get him down, because that's how tough Marv is. And that's all in the first movie. It's in the first graphic novel, and Marv shows up in the second movie and later Sin City stories, pre-death, obviously. Number 4. Alright, I said this is the top 5 protagonist quests of all time. I wasn't going for, the greatest in all of storytelling, because everyone, you could bash me, like, where's Don Quixote, where's, this or that, but, I'm putting one on there that is definitely considered one of the all-time greats. Sam and Frodo, Lord of the Rings, novel series, movies, live action and animated. Now, this kind of makes it for me because this was such a template for all things fantasy, pretty much since it came out. The original novel series was, a template for fantasy epic quest stuff, and that has, kind of gone into everything else that's came out in terms of, high fantasy, dragons, magic, elves, all that stuff. That all comes from one source, and it's actually, a lot of times the older stuff is harder to read because of the writing style, but it's still so easy to get drawn into the Lord of the Rings trilogy of books. I read it in high school, and I was, once I got started, I couldn't stop. And the whole tale is actually overall, a lot more than just Sam and Frodo's quest to drop the ring off. It's coming together of the races to fight Sauron and the evil people, and probably why the Jews are wrong. I mean, I'm not going to read too much into J.R. Tolkien's stuff like that, but all that aside, the side quest, I think, makes the story more than the high fantasy sword fights and elves and the complicated political backstory on everything. Just 2 hobbits trying to get rid of a ring. They're tiny, they're terrified, and they have like one of the biggest tasks in the world in front of them. And to me, this is a quest of overcoming being not the greatest hero, not the greatest this or that, but overcoming it anyway and getting the job done. And it's a story of friendship. This is a quest of friendship. This is how you can rely on someone else to accomplish what seems to be impossible. You couldn't do it on yourself. You could not do this on his own. It's, Sam couldn't have done it on his own. They needed each other, and the strength of their friendship overcomes all these things they go through. These, terrifying monsters and demons, and having to go into Mordor, and the ring's having more of a hold on Frodo the longer he goes, and of course Gollum's right behind him, and he's trying to, he wants his ring back, and the movies are really, really great. Obviously, Return of the King won Best Picture, but for me, my my money still got to go back to the original books. They're just so well done. It's, you know, if you're a fantasy fan like me, reading it, everything else you see, you just see where a lot of it comes from. You know, Wheel of Time. I mean, God, the whole first book is just so much Lord of the Rings. You know, even Game of Thrones, which isn't really, like I said, not really the quest. Epic quest has really, and that's more political intrigue, but everything else from, you know, just the complicated backstory of everything, you know, that's definitely drawn from Lord of the Rings. And, you know, this Sam and Frodo is just a special story. It's a quest against all odds. It's the best kind of quest. It's epic. You know, it's the little guy, you know, taking care of the world's biggest problem. You can't go wrong.